The assignment. They called it a death post. Garrick Shaw leaned on the rusted fence, chewing a dried strip of synth meat as the announcement scrolled across the hollow board overhead. Human labor number 4457 Garrick Shaw, reassigned, Biological Maintenance Sector 7Z, Dragon Pens. Effective immediately. Around him, the mess hall went quiet. The other humans, mostly convicts, rejects, and out-of-work colonists like himself, stared. Some winced. A few muttered prayers to whatever off-world god might listen to a man about to be eaten alive. "Poor bastard," someone whispered. Garrick cracked a grin. Finally, a job that bites back. No one laughed. Yereth 9 was a fringe planet, hot, humid, and crawling with imported nightmares from a dozen systems. The Galactic Allied Coalition used it as a dumping ground for dangerous fauna, outdated war machines, and undesirable workers. That last category was where Garrick fit in, sentenced to a 10-year contract after hacking military drones during a border skirmish. His skills hadn't been appreciated. Now, apparently, they were giving him to the dragons. Sector 7Z lay beyond the main compound, behind layers of magnetic fences and thick security doors. The air smelled of scorched metal and old blood. He was met by a Falari handler, tall, four-eyed, and constantly sneering. "You are the new feeder," the Falari said in clipped galactic common, wrinkling his nose. Garrick nodded. "That's what the sign says. You last a week, I pay a bet. You die first shift, I collect." The Falari walked off without waiting for a reply. A second later, Garrick heard the growl. The pens were massive, open-air cages reinforced with shock netting and heat-hardened alloy. Inside paced creatures out of myth, 12 to 15 meters long, scaled and spined, wings half-folded against thick, muscled flanks. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim lighting, intelligent, unreadable. Dragons, the Coalition called them. Not true reptiles. Alien war beasts from the lost planet Hesh'vaal. Engineered once for battle, now half-feral and impossible to control. The aliens fed them, studied them, sometimes used them for ceremonial parades, but no one rode them. No one tamed them. Garrick leaned against the gate of one pen and whistled low. A big one, deep crimson and marked with old scars, turned its head. Garrick stared into its eyes. No rage. No hunger. Just curiosity. "Ha!" Garrick murmured. "What are you thinking about?" A siren wailed as a second gate opened. A loader drone dropped slabs of processed meat into a trough. The dragon didn't move, just kept watching Garrick. "That one's Redscar," said a voice behind him. A human, older, grizzled, missing an eye. Killed 3 handlers last year. Eats through cages like they're foam. Stay the hell away from him. "Why do you think he hasn't attacked me yet?" Garrick asked, not turning. The old man snorted. "Because he's waiting until you're inside." Maybe. But Garrick had a theory. Dragons didn't just lunge and kill. Not immediately. Not unless provoked. He'd read reports while pulling server duty months ago. Behavior logs, combat footage, odd glitches in surveillance. They weren't wild. They were bored. Maybe even lonely. Back on Earth, Garrick had trained stubborn racing lizards as a kid. Nothing this size, but animals were animals. Patterns. Triggers. Fear. Trust. Same toolkit, bigger body. He stepped a little closer to the gate. Redscar didn't move. Garrick held out a hand, not into the pen, just hovering near the bars. "I'm Garrick," he said softly. "And I think you're smarter than they give you credit for." The dragon's pupils narrowed. Then, to Garrick's surprise, it dipped its massive head slightly, barely a nod. "Well," Garrick said, "maybe this job won't suck after all." Back in his new bunk, the lights flickering overhead, Garrick reviewed the dragon's movements on his slate. He'd recorded the encounter using a covert lens in his collar. Jaw twitches. Tail flicks. Pupil dilation. All subtle responses. Not random. The aliens saw a beast. Garrick saw a puzzle. A puzzle he might actually enjoy solving. He clicked on a folder labeled Neural Overlap, Reptilian Earth Species, and began tagging similarities. Muscle patterns. Stimuli response times. A faint grin played on his lips. Let's see what they didn't expect, he muttered. From outside, somewhere far in the dark, a dragon howled. And for the first time since arriving on this godforsaken rock, Garrick felt completely alive. Feeding time. The morning started with fire. Not real fire, just the heat wave shimmer pouring off the high stone cliffs beyond Sector 7Z, making the air twist like boiling water. Garrick squinted through it as the reinforced gate buzzed open and admitted him into the dragon pens. His breath caught for a second. Not from fear. Anticipation. Redscar was already awake. The massive crimson dragon stood near the back of his enclosure, wings twitching in the dusty light, eyes trained on Garrick like he'd been waiting. Which, for all Garrick knew, he had. "Morning, big guy," Garrick said. "Brought breakfast." A loader drone hovered in behind him, hissing as it dumped 2 slabs of synth meat into Redscar's trough. The meat barely hit the metal before Redscar lunged forward. Not at Garrick. At the food. He tore through the first slab like it insulted his lineage. Garrick noted the jaw angle, the delay between eye flick and movement, the subtle way the dragon shifted his weight before the strike. All of it went into the tiny data recorder in Garrick's collar. He moved down the line of pens. There were 7 dragons total. All different colors, all different sizes, but none quite like Redscar. Most handlers stayed behind the auto-feeders or activated the shielding drones when doing rounds. Garrick ignored both. He knelt next to each pen in turn, talking softly, tossing in bits of extra feed, even sliding in puzzle balls he'd crafted from spare parts. Weighted spheres with small food capsules inside, cheap enrichment toys. The Threxian overseer, who had been watching him from the control tower, squawked through the intercom. "Human 4457. You are not authorized to interact beyond standard procedure." Garrick waved at the tower without looking up. "Just feeding. They're animals, not statues. They are classified war fauna. Your safety is not our concern." Garrick grinned. "Didn't think it was." He reached Redscar again and stopped. The dragon was crouched low now, not in an attack posture, but attentive, like a cat watching a toy it didn't quite understand. Garrick knelt. He pulled something from his pocket, a harmonica. Old earth junk, bought off a trader for 2 credits. He'd repaired it in his bunk the night before, tuning the reeds with a fragment of his toothbrush. "Let's see how you like blues," he muttered. He brought the harmonica to his lips and began to play, a slow, twanging tune. A little off-key, a little rough, but something primal in its rhythm. The dragons stilled. Not just Redscar. All of them. Their eyes shifted. Heads tilted. One, a pale green female with torn wings, let out a deep rumble that didn't sound hostile. Redscar blinked. Then, impossibly, he lowered his head to the ground and let out a low, steady exhale. Garrick stopped playing. "Well, damn," he said. He played again. Slower this time. Redscar shifted closer to the gate and crouched, like he was listening. That night, back in the barracks, Garrick reviewed his footage. The dragon's reactions to the harmonica weren't random, they showed pattern recognition. Stimulus response. Conditioning potential. He pulled up another file, neural cluster map, Hesh'vaal variant. "Same olfactory processing as Earth reptiles," he muttered. "But audio perception's tighter. They don't just hear sound. They feel it." His slate buzzed. A message, Human 4457, report to Overseer Deck. Immediate. The Threxian stood stiffly behind a curved desk that looked like it had been carved from a single sheet of obsidian. Its tongue flicked in and out, an old habit of the bureaucrat caste. "You violated procedure," it said flatly. "Direct physical proximity. Unauthorized acoustic emissions. Improvised enrichment protocols. Any one of those is a death-worthy breach." Garrick folded his arms. "And yet, here I am. Not dead." The Threxian's second set of eyes blinked independently. "You think your survival is proof of intelligence? I think it's proof you've been doing this wrong for 30 years. A tense silence. Then, "You will continue. But under surveillance. The Council wants data. If you die, we lose nothing." Sounds like my usual gig. Garrick turned to leave. Just before the door closed, the Threxian added, "Be warned, human. The dragons do not bond. They are weapons, not companions. Garrick smirked. We'll see. Outside, the sun was rising again over the jagged cliffs. Garrick walked toward the pens, harmonica in one hand, data slate in the other. Redscar stood already at the gate, waiting. And when Garrick raised the harmonica again, 7 dragons watched him as one. Something was beginning. And no one, not the Threxians, not the Falari, not even Garrick himself, had any idea what was coming next. The surprise. The power cut came at midday. One moment, Sector 7Z buzzed with the usual drone activity, feeders humming, fences glowing faintly with charge, and the next, everything went dark. Dead silence, broken only by the sudden static hiss from the control tower. Garrick froze, halfway through tuning his harmonica. Then came the alarms. Red lights. Sirens. Lockdown failed. The electric fence barriers surrounding the dragon pens winked out, one by one. A system failure. Or sabotage. Either way, the worst-case scenario had arrived. Across the yard, the dragons stirred. Wings unfolded. Claws scraped against steel. Muscles tensed like coiled springs, no longer contained. The air grew heavier, full of heat and anticipation. Garrick didn't run. The other workers did. He saw them scatter, screaming into their comms, slamming into blast doors that refused to close. The security drones activated, but without the full power grid, their stun fields were useless. Containment breach in Sector 7Z, a voice crackled over the intercom. All units, emergency response. Too late. With a shriek that echoed across the compound, one of the smaller dragons burst through its cage. Not toward the control center. Toward the open space, toward Garrick. Redscar, Garrick said softly, standing alone in the center of the pens. Let's see if you meant it. The big crimson dragon stepped from the shadows of his now unpowered enclosure. Unlike the others, he didn't rush. He moved deliberately, wings folded neatly, tail dragging a line in the dirt. His eyes never left Garrick's. One of the Threxian guards lifted a plasma rifle from the tower balcony. Don't! Garrick shouted. Do not shoot! The guard didn't listen. A pulse round screamed down. And Redscar moved. He leapt, not at Garrick, but over him, slamming into the ground with enough force to crater the soil. The blast of his wings flattened the grass around them. The plasma round struck his armored flank and sizzled off harmlessly. Garrick turned slowly. Behind him stood Redscar, tail lashing protectively. The dragon had placed himself between Garrick and the tower. It wasn't aggression. It was defense. A second dragon, the pale green female with torn wings, stepped from her enclosure and joined them. She circled once, then sat beside Redscar like a bodyguard. The others followed. Within minutes, Garrick stood at the center of a ring of dragons, 7 in total, silent and still, their bodies forming a wall of scale and claw around him. Not attacking. Not rampaging. Guarding. The silence stretched. The tower crew didn't fire again. 10 minutes later, an armed transport screeched into the yard. Threxian commandos disembarked, weapons trained on everything that moved. Garrick held up both hands. I can control them, he shouted. Laughter crackled over the comms. You're not even trained, human. Step away. I said I can control them. He lifted the harmonica slowly. The dragons didn't flinch. They leaned in. A single note echoed across the yard. Then another. A slow, rhythmic pattern. 4 beats, pause. 2 beats, pause. Garrick played the same phrase 3 times. The dragons responded. Not with sound, but with movement, synchronized. Tails flicked in time. Claws shifted. A low thrum, almost like a hum, built in their throats. Do you see? Garrick yelled. They're listening. By nightfall, the compound was locked down again. Dragons returned to their pens willingly, no force needed. Garrick walked them in, one by one, giving quiet instructions they obeyed like trained warhorses. The scientists reviewed the surveillance footage 3 times. Pattern recognition. Synchronization. Voluntary restraint. Defensive behavior. It was undeniable. The dragons weren't just intelligent. They were bonding. And they had chosen Garrick. Later, in a cold, sterile debrief room, he sat across from a half-dozen species, council officials in their ceremonial robes, staring at him like he'd grown wings. "How long have you suspected this?" one asked. "Since the first day," Garrick said. "They're not weapons. Not just. They're people. Kinda. And you've developed a control system?" "I didn't control them," he replied. "I earned them." Silence. Then one of the Falari generals leaned forward, baring his fangs. "What do you want, human?" Garrick smirked. "A saddle," he said. "And a squad." Outside the window, Redscar waited, coiled like a predator, calm as a statue. Something had changed, and the galaxy would never be ready for it. The saddle arrived 2 days later. Custom fabricated, carbon fiber weave, reinforced with adaptive clamps and biometric sensors. It was designed not just for durability, but to test a theory that a human and a dragon could move as one without restraints, pain circuits, or neural overrides. No one had ever ridden a dragon from Hesh'vaal. No one had dared. Garrick ran his hands over the smooth black surface. "You ready for this?" he asked. Redscar lowered his head, slow and deliberate. A breath like steam washed over Garrick's chest. He took that as a yes. Fitting the saddle was the easy part. It locked into the notch between Redscar's shoulders with an audible click, the biometric seal flashing green. The hard part was what came next, convincing the High Command to let him fly. The Council had gathered in the observation tower. A dozen alien eyes followed his every move, cold, calculating, waiting for failure. "If he loses control, you shoot them both," hissed the Threxian warlord into his calm. Garrick heard him. Didn't care. He placed one foot on Redscar's foreleg. The dragon didn't move. Garrick climbed, slow, steady, like he had a lifetime to get it right. When he settled into the saddle, Redscar flexed his shoulders but remained still. Then Garrick did something no one expected. He put the harmonica away. No cue. No command. Just a whisper. "Let's fly." Redscar moved like a thunderclap. One lunge, one beat of his wings, and they were airborne. The ground dropped away with dizzying speed. Wind howled past Garrick's ears. The compound became a speck below. He leaned forward, gripping the saddle grips, but not too tight. He didn't want to steer like a rider. He wanted to guide like a partner. And Redscar responded. They banked hard left, wings slicing through cloud-thin mist. Garrick felt the shift in balance before it happened, his body moving with Redscar's rhythm like a second heartbeat. It wasn't instinct, it was connection. Far below, the dragons in the pens roared as one. From the tower, the council watched in stunned silence. "He is not controlling it," one of them said. "No," murmured another. "He's coexisting." The Threxian commander's tail lashed behind him. "This is a violation of biological protocols. These beasts were never meant to be piloted." "But they're not being piloted," the Falari ambassador replied. "They're choosing." Redscar soared across the jagged ridge beyond Sector 7Z, then climbed higher, punching into the upper atmosphere. Garrick's eyes watered from the cold, but he laughed, loud, raw, free. The kind of laugh you make when you realize your whole life's been leading to this one impossible moment. Up here, the rules didn't apply. No fences. No control towers. No species hierarchy or contract chains. Just wind and wings. And trust. They spiraled downward at breakneck speed, diving toward the jungle canopy below the cliffs. Redscar tucked his wings, and for a heartbeat, they plummeted. Then, a snap open, a smooth arc, a low glide just above the treetops. Birds scattered. Leaves blew in their wake. Garrick reached out and brushed the tops of the trees as they passed. "Redscar," he called into the wind, "you were never a monster." He felt the dragon rumble beneath him, a deep, resonant sound that wasn't quite a roar and wasn't quite a growl. It was agreement. They returned at sunset. Redscar landed in the yard like a warship arriving home, steady, powerful, precise. Garrick dismounted without a word. Silence met him. The council had gathered on the ground now, watching. Even the guards stayed back, their weapons lowered. The Threxian stepped forward. "This changes nothing," it snapped. Garrick tilted his head. "No, it changes everything. You bonded with one," the alien hissed. "That doesn't make you a leader. It makes you a threat." But it wasn't just one. As if on cue, the remaining dragons, all 6, began to stir. Doors opened. Fences deactivated. No commands were issued. And yet, they walked forward, quiet, orderly, and encircled Garrick. The pale green female came to stand beside him. A younger one, blue and lean, crouched behind. 7 dragons. 1 human. No aggression. No containment. Just choice. Garrick looked up at the council. "You said they couldn't bond. That they were weapons. But they've made a decision." He looked down at Redscar, whose eyes were glowing faintly in the growing dark. "So have I." Somewhere in orbit, word spread fast. The council debated. The colonies listened. And across dozens of planets where dragons had been locked away in pens, other humans, handlers, outcasts, dreamers, looked to the sky and wondered if they, too, could be chosen. Garrick didn't know where this would lead. But he knew what would come next. Training. Trust. And soon, war.